Hey, great to see you again, children. If my plans and my timing was what I thought it would be, this is the beginning of the third week of my paternity leave. So there's a very good chance that this is going to be the last week that we are not face to face with each other, and this will be the last video that you're watching. But I don't know, things could happen. Why is that drawer open? Let's begin. This is going to be a good one. You are not on your Chromebooks this week. This is called the Impressions Lab, so make sure you have this in front of you. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to highlight some things. It should be fun. It should be easy, but it should teach you some things as far as what impressions are in the field of forensics and how difficult they can be. So let's read. Impressions evidence includes any markings produced when one object comes into contact with another, leaving behind some kind of indentation or print. Such evidence encountered includes footwear impressions, tire marks, and markings created by tools and similar instruments. If you can imagine someone's breaking into a house and they're taking a crowbar to bust open the window or to pry open a door, that's going to leave an impression. As vehicles may be present at crime scenes before, during, or after the crime, tire impressions may be discovered at the scene, usually left behind in the soil. The enhancement and collection of these is similar to that of footwear impressions. If a tire impression is discovered at a scene, the impression corresponding to the opposite tire should also be searched for, as the distance between these may provide further information. What that's saying is the distance between the tires is important, and that's something I'm going to make you do for this lesson. We're not playing with real cars. We are using toy cars, but the science is behind it the same. You get to play with a bunch of these guys. I went out and bought a bunch of these with my own money, and these aren't, well, yeah, they're the cheap ones, but some of them are nice ones. It goes like this. This is my story to make it seem like it really happened to get you more interested in it. There were some tire tracks found in the Ridgeview parking lot, and it's thought that these tire tracks are from the car that hit and killed Carl. I don't know if I can... Yeah, Carl is still over there. He's still pretty dead. And if you remember from when we talked about killing Carl at the beginning of the school year, I said that he probably got hit by a car and somebody dragged him out there. Carl is still dead. Rest in peace, Carl. Photographs were taken of the tracks. However, those photographs have been sent to the crime lab and are currently being analyzed and investigated. You, being the cracked CSI people that you are, have a suspicion that the hit and run driver is a teacher here at Ridgeview Junior High. Therefore, you have impounded all of their cars. This is probably... Whose car would this be? Mrs. Mesner. She looks like she would drive something like this. I'll read the rest of it and then I'll explain what it means. Using ink pads and rulers, you're going to document each teacher's car tire pattern. Then using a magnifying glass, you're going to write any notes about the pattern. You're going to measure it with a ruler. Some of the patterns between all these cars that you're going to be using are going to be very small and subtle. Like it's going to be a very small difference from one car to the next. So you need to be accurate. The last time I really harped on accuracy was you drawing stuff for the hair and fiber lab. And some of you did not draw the hair and fiber examples from the microscopes very accurately, and therefore you got a bad grade on it. I'm not around to offer you extra credit for this, so you gotta do a better job than what some of you did during the hair and fiber lab. Once you have documented all the teacher suspect cards and have impressions of them done, then your substitute teacher will give you the photograph of the tire tracks that were found at the scene. You will then compare that photograph of the tire tracks found at the scene compared to all your illustrations and impressions of the suspect cars, and hopefully you'll be able to figure out which car it was that committed the crime. If you flip to the next page, you can see in each one of these little squares, this is where you're going to do an impression of the tires on all the different suspect cars, and all these lines along the side are to write notes or measurements or whatever you need to write down. So it works like this. I have a bunch of these ink pads. These aren't the most high-tech, expensive ink pads, but they should definitely work for our situation. When these are not in use, make sure this lid stays on them, otherwise they're going to dry out very fast. If they all dry out before the end of the week and before the end of this assignment, then you're not going to have anything to use, and I'm not going to have anyone swoop in to buy you some more. So take care of these. It goes like this. Take off the lid. You take your car. Hopefully I can line this up. You then rub the wheels on the ink pad and make sure they get nice and inky. Like you can see, that has a decent amount of green, but not the back two wheels. So get them decently inky. Try not to make a mess. Try not to get it on your hands or clothing or the table or whatever. I don't want to come back to a hot mess. This is good. You can see those tires are nice and green. You will be making the tire track on these little squares right here, but I don't want to do exactly that. I'll just grab a Post-it note. And then in that space on your sheet, you're going to simply go and drive it on there. That wasn't the best one because I'm holding it funny. Let me try again. That's a little bit better. It's kind of hard because I'm holding it, but you get the gist of it. If it doesn't come out good, like the ones that I did didn't turn out good. This tire, I don't know how well you can see that. This tire has some good tread on it. And I didn't put enough ink on the tire, and it just turned out to be like a line. It should be way more than a line. That's a little bit better. But if you need to take a couple tries at it, make sure you get a good one, because these are going to be the only notes you have to compare to the actual crime scene footage. There should be Kleenexes or paper towels out. Try to kind of clean off each car. Every single person in class is working alone on this. This is not a group assignment. So once you use a car, everyone else in class is going to also want to use this car. And if you don't clean it at least a little bit between each person, this is going to be all gummy and nasty, and it's just going to be a lot harder to work with. You are to do this impression with the ink pad and with these toy cars. There are a total of 18 of the cars, which is exactly how many spaces I put on here. There's 6 of them there, 6 more, and then the final 6. So there are 18 total teacher cars that have been impounded for this assignment. Once you're done with it, again, your substitute teacher will give you a photograph of the actual crime scene footage so that you can make a comparison and identify which car it was. So please make sure in this section, when you have the impression of the car tires over here, on all these lines, describe the car. If you forget to say that this car came from a red fire department, funky looking car, you're not going to know how to identify it later on. So make sure you describe it. Make sure you're using a ruler and you're like measuring out how many centimeters or millimeters the width was on the car. It's all the important stuff. You don't want to realize on day 4 of this assignment that you didn't write good enough notes. Just having this done isn't going to solve the crime. You also need to have measurements of this stuff and a good description of the car and tires and everything else. If you get done a little bit early just for funsies, on the very back page of this packet, I included some information on how law enforcement and forensic people determine how fast a car was going based on the skid marks it leaves on the pavement. So I want you to read this on your own. I'm not going to bother reading all this right now. If you hate math, I promise you'll like it a little bit. I'll leave it at that. It is interesting to find out because, like, if a car tries to jam on the brakes on grass, it's going to slide a very far distance because grass has what we call a low coefficient of friction. Something like pavement is going to have a high coefficient of friction, and that allows the cars to stop quicker. I mean, if you're driving on ice and you apply the brakes, you're going to slide for a very, very long time. Ice has a very, very low coefficient of friction, which is this funky little symbol right here. But read over that, try to answer it. It's kind of fun to see how that works, and you'll figure out whether or not the people in my 2-story problems were speeding. Hopefully this is the last video you see of me. Hopefully I'm back next week. If not, I'm sure I'll see you soon. Hopefully everything is going smooth. I miss you guys. Have a great week. Enjoy this lab. Try to stay clean and stay busy. See you.